Italy in the 1970s. Beneath the calm veneer of society, of art, of high fashion, of fast cars, it was also a time of violence called the Years of Lead. It was the time of Brigate Rosse, also known as the Red Brigades in English. To understand the communist group known as the Red Brigades, first we must look into its roots, and why after World War II many Italian youths became infatuated with communism. For the story of the Red Brigades is a story of capitalism itself, that through its overexpanding industrialization appetite and search for profit, it commodified and threw away many human lives. For capitalism is such a powerful force that it transformed Italy from the years 1955 to 1963, not even a decade, from an agrarian society to an industrial one. In this powerful transformation, many people are uprooted from their traditions, communal bonds, solidarity, family values, cohesion, and thrown away into cold world of factory life and individuality. In this mass migration from rural life in the south to the metropolises of the north, people were forced to live in an illegal erected housing called the curias due to the lack of affordable accommodations. A great example of these ghettos is La Velle di Scampia, or the cells of Scampia in English. Designed by the architect Franz di Salvo, they were built within a utopian outlook for the working class urban modernizations of Italy. However, the 8 towers of low-income housing projects didn't meet the utopian vision of its creator, of its architect, but rather, they closely resembled the dystopian visions of the writer J.C. Ballard in his book High Rise. But what other outcome can one expect when people are forced to live on top of one another, 6 to 7, crowded together in one small apartment? The cells also had many other problems with shortages of electricity, or some apartments with no electricity and some with no toilets, rain pouring the dilapidated rooftops, hence cooped up in these unhygienic public housings and alienated from their fellow men. It is no wonder then that these inhospitable conditions and the indifference to one's own humanity creates a psychological crisis. As communist philosopher Antonio Gramsci was convinced when he wrote, "We are all victims of an evil power. We are all immersed in a terrible asphyxiation, bourgeois reality that is driving society to indiscipline, frenzy and homicidal chaos. We are all bound. We are bound that makes us angry and exasperated." It is because of these conditions that weigh on man's soul and mind that give rise to radical philosophies that support radical solutions to the existing system. As Renato Curcio penned, the dregs of society are the vanguard of the revolution. Another crux in the origins of the Red Brigade is the 1968 worldwide student protest. The same year that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated was also the same year the youth of the world rebelled. From France, USA, Germany, Italy, Poland, Mexico, and even far away as Japan, the university students revolted and clashed with the police on various issues: the Vietnam War, racism and apartheid, workers' rights, and etc.
Incensed by the sight of riot police, sanity and social responsibility were forgotten. During this dramatic night of bloodshed and terror, there were similar scenes in many centers of provincial.
The Columbia strike may have reminded people of the Paris Commune, but May '68 in France was the real thing. What began as a student protest for reform of the archaic, authoritarian French university system sparked a general strike that electrified the country.
They were anarchists, most of them. That was the spirit. The slogan was "All power to the imagination." That you can do anything, that we don't have to live with all the various forms of repression, which we're used to. So it was anti-capitalist, but that was just part of this general, complete sort of cultural revolution that the French students were anticipating. And so it's interesting that although they were the furthest out in any way politically, that was also the one place where workers joined with students and almost toppled.
Principal slogans, I think, were quotations from Marx and Rimbaud. From Marx, let us change the world. From Rimbaud, let us change life.
Carlos Fuentes, the Mexican novelist, was an active participant in May '68, along with many international students caught up in the excitement.
What there was is a sense of extraordinary brotherhood and sisterhood. There was this capacity to embrace people in the streets. There were couples kissing. There were couples that fell apart because they did not share political.
And it is from these rebellious university students that the Red Brigades were created. Renato Curcio, born September 23, 1941, a son of a housemaid, he was studying sociology at the University of Trento until he dropped out to start the Red Brigades with his future wife, Margarita Cagol. Margarita Cagol, born April 8, 1945, she came from a middle-class family that owned perfumery, and she was also a student of social studies at the University of Trento. And last but not least, Alberto Franceschini, born October 26, 1947, to a family of communist intellectuals and whose grandfather was a founding member of the Italian Communist Party. As a communist prodigy, he was destined to rebel against the state. And so was stuttered the raising of the flames of the revolution to topple the current Italian government and to separate Italy from NATO, United States sphere of influence, and from capitalism. The Red Brigades first started out small by concentrating their ire on corporations, burning personal vehicles of company directors, and firebombing warehouses and factories. They then upped the ante by abducting corporate executives, right-wing officials, and etc. One of the most notable of these early kidnapping was the abduction of the director of Fiat in 1973, whom was released when Fiat rehired 600 laid-off employees. This shored up their popularity with the working-class Italians and shored up their membership. In April 1974, they kidnapped conservative judge Mario Sossi in Genoa, who was held for months until the state agreed to a prisoner exchange. However, after the judge was released, the state reneged on the deal. A notable aspect of the Red Brigade's kidnapping is that they never tortured their victims. That same year, they further raised their operation by killing 2 neo-fascist members when they raided the fascist Italian Social Movement Party headquarters in Padua. Also that same year, they assassinated a police inspector in Turin. Italy was gripped with fear as bank robberies, kneecappings, and abductions and assassinations became part of the morning rush hour routine. The Carabinieri started their crackdown. Renato Curcio and many brigadisti were incarcerated, but not for long. With a daring rescue, Margarita Cagol freed her husband and others from prison. In February 1975, the Red Brigades were expanding and needed more money for their operation, and the money they were getting from the bank robberies weren't enough. So that is why by mid-1975 they decided to kidnap industrialist Valeriano Gancia and hold him for ransom in a farmhouse. However, the plan didn't go as planned, and the police got a drop on the brigadistes. And like a Jean-Patrick Monchette novel, they had to make a brazen getaway. Armed with submachine guns and grenades, Margarita Cagol and another brigadisti had a shootout with the police and got into their getaway vehicle by throwing grenades at the police, killing one and wounding others. Soon after, they crashed their car into a tree bark, with one of the brigadistes escaping by throwing grenades, but Margarita Cagol wasn't so lucky and she was shot dead on June 5, 1975.